Before we partake of the Lord's Supper, today we finish up with dealing with the up-downs. I think one of the difficult things of life is when things are going great, we have a tendency to go, look what I've done. And the only problem is that moves us away from God. When things are going bad, we have a tendency to go, wow, what's wrong? And that moves out God. So what I want to do is I want to share with you today a couple of strategies. So we talked about last week how when things are really wonderful or things are really bad, that we need to focus our life and our attention on God. My father-in-law was a mason, brick mason all of his life, and one of the things I learned about him was plumb bobs. And I was thinking that I would hang a plumb bob from the rafter. James and Julie and David Villa and they brought this thing, to raise, a lift, and that's why we've got where you can actually see and hear all over the room, and they worked. And so my nephew and I, several years ago, I bought a ladder, and it extends 80, 85 feet, single ladder. And so you extend it out, and then you walk it up, and you hang it from the rafters. And my job was to sit on the bottom of it. And if I sit on the bottom of it, then the rafter might break, but the bottom's not going to move, So my job was to sit on it and just watch everybody work. And so that's what I did. And I thank James and Julie and David and for changing out the lights. We put in really good lights, and they're warranted to not stop working for 5 years. And so we put in LEDs. And so anyway, I'm very excited about that. But the more I thought about, I felt I'm usually the one doing stuff. You know what I mean? I'm the guy doing the plumbing or painting or cooking. I want to do. And as I was turning around watching Dustin, hang from the rafters at the top of this ladder, I thought, this isn't right. I'm the one supposed to be up there. And so anyway, Dustin, he's kind of half monkey anyway. He's my nephew. What do you expect? He's OCD and CPD and all those kind of letters that go with being, part of my blood. And I'm thinking, who's got the most important job? I mean, David and Julie, they're on this electric scissor lift, and you push a button. Matter of fact, it's even cool because when they got off of it, I put my grandson up there, and we kind of tooled around the room, elevated up. He thought it was cool, and it was fun. But, the scissor lift's not going anywhere. I mean, it's got safety measures. If something breaks, it slowly kind of like those cartoons, it just kind of wilts. And I realized the most important job was my job sitting on the bottom of the ladder. You see, what you don't know is that it's not been used for 5 years, because when I bought it, we had lights that were out, and I didn't want people fussing at me. I've learned as a husband, it's better to get forgiveness than argue about approval. And so, I raised the ladder up, and I went up once and changed up a couple of lights, and then I moved it to the center, and I was about halfway up. And I don't know if y'all noticed, the floor is kind of slick. Did y'all ever notice that concrete floor is kind of slick? I'm halfway up, and the ladder goes like that, and I went, all right, Lord, I'm halfway up. What's going to happen? And as the bottom slid out, it shot those rows back there, those chairs back there, and the ladder, matter of fact, we didn't have those pieces of wood up yet, and I had some paint. You can see the scrapes in the behind it, and it just kind of bop, bop, bang, and so I'm laying on this ladder on my face going, All right, I'm not dead. This isn't heaven because I know I'm not going to hell. Jesus paid the penalty for my sin. And I'm going, you know, I might need to put the ladder. So then I bought some 3M glue, that spray-on glue. And matter of fact, you come back to the service, you can see a round coloration there where the stain's not as dark. And so I sprayed 3M glue in 2 spots and let it get sticky. And then I put the ladder on the glue. And I got about 2/3 of the way up where I glued the bottom of the ladder, and the ladder started going like that, and I went, I'm smarter than this. And I crawled back down the ladder and said, no, James, I couldn't get the rest of those lights done. I put the ladder up in the attic. It's been there for 5 years. It took me 2.5 hours to scrape the glue I'd sprayed on the floor, off the floor. And I said, Lord, if I ever climb up on that ladder again, you've got a right just to go ahead and take me out. So we're talking about you can't get a lift onto the stage. I mean, and to get a boom, you've got to cut a big hole in the wall to get the boom in. So, you know what we need is we need my big ladder, but how can we change this so that when somebody walks up on the ladder, they don't, I don't know if you know this, but it doesn't look very high up there, but once you're up there, it looks kind of high. You know, we don't want them to fall down, and, you know, we've only got like $5 million worth of insurance, and stupid ideas usually land you higher than $5 million when they don't work. And so I'm talking to Dustin, I said, would you mind climbing up a ladder for me? He says, how tall is that? I don't know. You know, it's a little ways up there, you know. He said, where? I said, in the sanctuary. You got a ladder that high? I said, yeah, but I hadn't used it in 5 years. So we looked, he said, how are we going to keep the ladder stable? And I said, Dustin, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my best pair of sticky tennis shoes that I use to play basketball. Y'all believe that, don't you? They're sticky, but I use them. I use them to walk on roofs. And I'm going to sit on the bottom of the ladder, and with my pounds, the ladder's not going to move, and the rafters not going to move. So anyway, we changed them all out. We got them all done. And nobody got killed or injured bad, just a few cuts and bruises when the ladder decided to fall into in the middle. But anyway, it was after we finished. So anyway, if anybody wants to scrap out an 80-foot aluminum ladder, I've got one. You know, just take it. We're not using it ever again. You're going, Karl, what in the world does this have to do with that? You see, I would propose to you that in the most exciting times of our life and in the most difficult times of our life, we have put ourselves, or we're in a place where it's very easy to move away from the foundation of God. It's almost like we're on a ladder, and if we don't say, God, you've got to hold this thing in place, and focus on the stability of God's structure, then it's very easy for life to slide out from underneath you and you're on your way down. We'll pick up the story of Job, chapter 1. One of those times in Job's life, verse 8, then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? In his time, Job was the richest man in the entire area. He had huge flocks. He had an amazing family. Everything was going wonderful with Job. So when Satan comes before God in heaven, he says, have you looked at my man Job? There is no one on earth like him. Notice, he is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. God's opinion of Job is, Job is awesome. You see, the truth about it is, in life, when you and I strive to serve God, to be what God desires us to be, you become Satan's enemy number one. I want you to think about that. Whenever you decide, I am going to be a servant of God, Satan puts you on his most wanted list. Guys, I want to tell you something. In our culture today, when things are getting so preposterously out of hand, can I tell you the one thing we don't have? We have very few Christians standing up saying, this is not right because God's word says. I hear a lot of Republicans. I hear a lot of Democrats. I hear a lot of conservatives. I hear a lot of progressives. In our pulpits today, I hear very few pastors standing up saying, this is what's going on, this is what the Bible says, and those two don't equal. Something has to change. Why? It's not easy, it's not fun, and when it happens, the slings and arrows come. John and I'll be taping Tuesday night, starting our Gap 10. And every week we're going to put out 10 minutes. This is what's going on in the culture, and this is what the Bible says. Not to be Democrats or Republicans, but simply say, as Christians, we follow God, and this is what the Word says. Anyway, I don't know when John's going to start posting, but they're going to start happening the end of this week. I'll let John handle that. And we're just going to talk about everything. 10 minutes. Every week. I looked for a man that would stand in the gap and make up the hedge, but I found none who would stand up for the what? For the salvation of the nation. You guys be praying about that. As Job stood for God and God said, there's nobody stands for me as amazing as Job does, Satan says, well, I tell you what, you let me at him. You see, Jesus told us in Matthew chapter 5, verse 10, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets that were before you. You and I need to realize that when you and I stand for God, since Satan is over this world, the world is going to come after you. If the world's not coming after you, you're walking in sync with them. How have we gotten to where we are? One of our government websites, we're offering grants this week for giving crack pipes. It's on the website to help people that were of color understand that they were accepted. Boy, that's really going to help people. I love you. Here's a crack pipe. It's changed. It's all wrong. I'm sorry. That was never there. I saw it. It was. Now it's changed. We're just going to give you needles. And we're going to spend $30 million giving needles and giving things to help people feel better about themselves in poor communities. And I'm thinking, bread would really be nice. I don't mean bread as in money, but like loaves, cut in slices with butter on it, But you're not supposed to say anything about that because you become mean and you're racist and you're wrong. I told people 16 months ago, I said, when you start printing more and more money, inflation is going to go out the roof. It's really not inflation because food has increased so much because food has increased so much because, COVID kind of slowed down factories, and so food wasn't in the CPI numbers. And because of the things that were happening in Ukraine, anything that dealt with oil and gas like plastics was taken out of the CPI numbers. And because the ports are clogged up, everything that deals with construction materials is taken out of the CPI numbers. So nothing to deal with construction, nothing to deal with fabrication, nothing to deal with oil, nothing to deal with food. And By the way, the number was still only high as it's been in 42 years, but it has nothing to do with we're spending, well, we only have $30 trillion worth of debt. Your great-grandchildren are going to have to give everything they have to the government to pay it off. And then we're still going to be dead. But you don't know anything, preacher, about economics. I'm sorry, I read the Word. Do you know the Bible, God figured out thousands of years ago that the borrower is the slave to the lender. Uh-oh. The borrower's a slave to the lender. We owe $30 trillion. We're not our own. Preacher, you don't know anything. I really don't. I know nothing about economics. I did study math in high school and college. I took remedial English. I've taken it 7 times. I'm not kidding. I took remedial English 7 times. The Bible, and the reason is that the Bible says God calls the foolish thing to confound the wisdom of the wise. So a remedial English major gets called to do what? Talk to people. Jesus said, and by the way, when you start speaking my word, people are coming for you. So what do? How do we stay stable when everything's going great or when everything's going terrible? I think number one, we focus on the correct print. Focus on the correct print. And what I mean by that is that you and I can focus on the applause of men, people, or we can focus on the applause of God. We can decide that I am more concerned about what God wants me to be than I am concerned about what people think of me. Notice the psalmist said in Psalm 12, everyone lies to their neighbor. They flatter with their lips, but harbor deceit for their hearts. May the Lord silence all flattering lips and every boastful tongue. The psalmist came out and said, listen, people are going to lie to you. They're going to flatter you. Why? Okay, ladies, I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever been shopping at a retail store in the mall trying on clothes? Have you ever been shopping at a retail mall trying on clothes? You tried on clothes, you didn't take your husband because he knew that retail therapy was not really therapy, it was torture for him. And so you're there by yourself, you picked out a dress, you go out of the dressing room, you're looking in the mirror and you ask the woman selling clothes, what do you think about this? Has she ever looked at you and said, man, that's really not your color? Has she ever looked at you and said, you know, ma'am, you probably need to get, you ready? One size larger. Has she ever looked at you and said, you know, ma'am, toe sacks of potatoes are designed for 50 pounds of potatoes, and that's about 75, which is 25 too much. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to look at you and go, well, that is nice. Why? Is she going home with you? Is she going to be the one that you suck in real good when you look at your mirror at the house wondering, well, yeah. No, she wants one thing. She makes commission when she sells something to you, so she's not going to tell you it looks ugly. Why? Because she wants 25% of what you're fixing to spend buying something that doesn't fit, that you don't like, because somebody else's opinion of it is great. Okay, you go to Crystal's shop, and Crystal's never going to do that, okay? The psalmist said thousands of years ago, people are going to lie to you to get what they want. Psalm 5, 8 through 10. Lead me, Lord, in your righteousness because of my enemies. Make your way straight before me. Not a word from their mouth can be trusted. Their heart is filled with malice. Their throat is open, an open grave. Their tongues, they tell lies. Declare them guilty, O God. Let their iniquities be their downfall. Banish them from many sins, for they have rebelled against you. Here very pointedly, he's going, listen, you need to understand. There's a reason why Paul says to the New Testament church, do not be unequally yoked with non-believers who are not in Christ. Why? Because in our culture doesn't want something for you. They want something from you. When you love someone, it's not what can I get out of you, but it is what can I pour in you. So when you and I listen to the advice of people that are outside of faith, you need to understand their advice has one purpose. That is to fulfill an agenda that is against the kingdom of God and is to get something from you. Wise up. Now remember, God had said about Job, there's no one more faithful than Job. Notice in Job chapter 4, verse 9, then Eliphaz the Timite replied, if someone ventures a word with you, this is after Job has lost everything, his stock, his herd, his barns were destroyed, his children were taken off by raiders. He is sitting down in ashes and he's taking pieces of rock to scrape pus from open wounds off of his body. Wow, he is having a wonderful day. His best friend says, if someone ventures a word with you, he says, will you be impatient? He said, Job, listen, I need to talk to you, Job, and just listen, calm down. Will you actually listen to what I have to say to you? Who can keep from speaking? Think how you have instructed many, how you have strengthened feeble hands. Your words have supported those who stumbled. You have strengthened fallen knees. What is he doing? Job, think about all the awesome things that you've done. Man, Job, you're an awesome man. Job, man, you are the God that has given wisdom and insight. Woo, Job. Job, you're the man, Job. But when somebody goes, man, you're awesome. Can I have a word with you for a moment? What that means is everything I've said before now means absolutely nothing. I'm going to tell you what I really think about you. But now trouble comes to you and you're discouraged. It strikes you and you're dismayed. Should not your piety be your confidence and your blameless ways your hope? Consider now who being innocent has ever perished. Where were the upright ever destroyed? As I have observed, those who plow evil and those who sow reap trouble. The breath of God they perish, in the blast of his anger there's no hope. There's hope no more. He says, Job, listen, Job, the problem in your life is that you've done something wrong to God. It's what he's saying in a polite, flowery way. I want you to think just for a moment. While his friend is saying, Job, you're the blame for your lot in life. Job's already down, right? How much further can you get? When you've lost your family, you're sitting down scraping pus from open sores, and your friend comes up to you and says, Job, look what you've got. It's all your fault, Job. Wow. Dude, that's a friend I want. Bring me some of them. While Eliphaz is doing that, God is going, there's no one more righteous than my friend Job. That's why I told you, when it's going awesome, when it's going bad, be careful about the press releases that you read. Whether it's going awesome or bad, you don't need the applause or rejection of people to identify who you are, that you're a child of God. I don't need that. During the beginning of the pandemic, there were a couple of decisions made by the judges of the county of Dallas in which I live. So as a citizen, I wrote them a letter, and they ignored it. I was trying to figure out why you could get your wound cleaned and you couldn't get your teeth cleaned. That's kind of like odd, right? So I decided that I would send a letter to the Dallas Morning News. Since they wouldn't respond to my letter, they wouldn't respond to my calls, I even went to see them with the appropriate mass paraphernalia, and they still wouldn't talk to me. And so I wrote a letter to the Dallas Morning News, and they, because of the inconsistency of my statements, that it was inflammatory. I can't figure out why we would sue to keep abortion clinics open and you can't go to the dentist. Do you understand how weird that is? Oh, you couldn't go to a restaurant to eat, but liquor stores were necessary places to stay open. I'm thinking, a man doesn't have to eat, but he's got to have the ability to drink. So anyway, the Dallas Morning News sent me a rejection, said that it was inflammatory and incendiary, but they did give me a free year prescription of the Dallas Morning News. And since I don't have a dog to use it properly, I just gave it to my neighbor. By the way, I let them know that too. I want you to read what God said about what the Bible says about Job in Job chapter 1, verse 4 and 5. His sons used to hold feasts in their homes on their birthdays, and they would invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And when the period of fasting ran its course, Job would make arrangements for them to be purified. Early in the morning, he would sacrifice a burnt offering for each of them, thinking, perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. This was God's regular custom. Do you understand? Job not only offered sacrifices to God for what he knew his kids did, he offered sacrifices for what his kids didn't even know they did wrong. And his friend goes, Job, you've done something wrong. This afternoon's the Super Bowl, and a guy that's been in the pros for a long time, Matthew Stafford, boy from Highland Park, is going to be quarterbacking one team, and they've won their first playoff games. And I'm excited for Matthew Stafford because everybody said he was a loser. He wasn't a loser. He just played for a losing team. You can tell they're a losing team when they never have a winning record. That means they're a losing team. Doesn't mean they're a bad team. Just means that they are making money, not, having a higher score. The other guy is a guy named Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow happened to matriculate from the wonderful SE school in Louisiana in Baton Rouge. You might have heard it, Louisiana State University, and he led LSU to a national championship. I just thought I'd let y'all know that. He led the league in most yards, highest percentage, other than a few of those little facts, and now he is basically quarterbacking one of the worst franchises in NFL history, and they're going to the Super Bowl. And anyway, Joe Burrow took a scholarship to Ohio State, and basically he was like 3rd or 4th string his freshman year. In his sophomore year, the coach basically said, you just don't have the skill set to be a successful quarterback at a major college. You probably need to go Division II or do one of those NAIA schools. Don't even try South Dakota State. But we're just going to let you play on the practice squad. And that's what his coach, the coach of the Ohio State, the Urban Myers, told him. And anyway, he's talking to his dad, and his dad said, son, if you think you're a quarterback, just go somewhere else. He said, but Dad, I'm not good enough. He said, son, when has it mattered what people think about you? So he starts looking for schools to transfer to. Thankfully, he picked LSU, who is not at all well known for their quarterback prowess. Still not. Anyway, we blind squirrel catches a squirrel an acorn every once in a while. Joe Burrow was asked this week about his time at Ohio State. And this is what he said. He said, I wouldn't be the same player I am today without those trials and tribulations I experienced there. I want you to think about that just for a moment. from you're not good enough to make the team to now you've taken a franchise that has not had the ability to win in years, and it's amazing what you're doing. You see, I think one of the amazing things about the young man is that a coach saying you're not good enough to another person saying, wow, look at what you've done. He has the presence of mind to go, you know what? I needed that time. What does that tell you? That tells you that there is this young man who will not allow himself to be defined by what people think of him. You see, you and I need to come to the place where we celebrate the opinion of God rather than man. We need to come to the place where we commit to being a person defined by God's words, not by man's rules. I am going to do what God has called and designed me to do, regardless of what the world thinks. Well, Karl, that's awful stubborn of you. You know what, folks? I think it's about time Christians got stubborn. What does it mean to be stubborn? It doesn't mean you're a fundamentalist. It doesn't mean that you ostracize or alienate other people, that you staunchly do what God has called you to do. My salvation depends on Jesus being stubborn. The night before, it was to be the night of his betrayal and his trial and all that type of thing. Jesus is praying in the garden. He asked God a question. What's the question? Dad, is there any way we can do this without me having to go through trial, rejection, and crucifixion and death? What was his response? Okay, nevertheless, it's not what I want, but what you want. He wakes up his disciples, he goes back and prays, and what's his prayer the second time? Dad, you know, I asked you before, listen, is there any way you think that we can do this without me having to go through that? Twice. Okay, Dad. Nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. He goes and wakes up the disciples and says, guys, come on, man. Y'all need to stay awake. Stay guard, man. Stay guard. He goes back and prays again. And what does he ask God now? He changes it up. Nope. Still on his mind is, Father, is there any way this cup can pass from me? Nevertheless, not my will, but yours. Jesus went to the cross because he asked his dad 3 times the same exact question. Are you sure? Yes, son, I'm sure. You got to go. You got to go through trial. You got to be condemned. You got to die. You got to die on a cross, and you got to rise again. Why? Because the human side of us doesn't want to go through that. I don't have mental problems. I don't like pain. I don't want pain. I don't like pain. But you see, you and I need to understand, like Joe Burrow says, you know, I wouldn't be the man I am if I would not have gone through the trials and tribulations of that time. Another thing you and I need to do, and I need to hurry up, is that we need to focus on the heart of God. When it gets tough, and it gets difficult, and it gets hard, that's when we focus on the heart of God. Little Dustin, as he's climbing that ladder, Dustin might weigh 150 pounds soaking wet. If you cut his hair, it goes down to 145. He's 8 foot tall minus 2.5 feet, okay? I mean, you know. I'll not tell you how many towns above 200 I am or how many I'm under 300, but you know, when the big dude is sitting on the bottom on the ladder so it doesn't move and the little dude's on top, the top might move, but the bottom's not going to move. You see, you might be up top frailing in the wind, but nothing will ever shake the heart of God. So Job gets up in Job chapter 1, verse 20. He tore his robe, shaved his head, then he fell on the ground and he worshiped and said, "Naked I came into the womb, naked I will depart. The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." In all this, Job did not sin by charging God. Why? God, no matter what's happening up here, you're sitting on the ladder of my life and you're immovable. I'm going to trust your heart. As the band comes up to lead us in a time of worship, in John chapter 11, there's a man named Lazarus who's sick. He's from Bethany, the town of Mary and his sister Martha. And Mary's the one that had anointed Jesus with oil, wiped his feet with her hair, and Lazarus was sick. The sisters sent unto Jesus and they said, Lord, behold, he whom you love is sick. And when Jesus heard that, he said, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Who Jesus loved? Martha, Mary, whose brother Lazarus was sick. When he heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 days in the same place where he was. Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. Mary and Martha sent a message to Jesus and said, Lazarus, the guy that you really love, you know, we've done all this for you. He's sick and he's about to die. And Jesus looked at his disciples and says, okay, guys, let's hang out here for a couple more days. How many hundreds of people have they seen Jesus heal? The disciples going, hold on, wait a second. He loves them and he can heal him and he's just going to stay here. What's up with that? When he heard that he was sick, he abode 2 days. You know what he did? He waited until Lazarus died. Jesus is walking into town. The sisters are ticked at him. They're mad. They're yelling, if you would have been here, he wouldn't have died. They don't have Jesus sitting on the ladder of their life. They're hanging in the breeze, blaming. What are they doing? They're not trusting the heart of God. You see, you and I need to understand that no matter what is going on in our life, sitting in our lives is the love of God, and it will not be shaken. It will not be moved. God, I'm going to trust it. Jesus explained to him and said, listen, there was a purpose for this, to demonstrate the awesome power of God. Just hang on. Hold on, girls. It's going to be okay. But our brother is dead. Shh. God is God and he loves you. Hang on. You can trust the heart of God. In Philippians 4:6, do not be anxious about anything. Why? But in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And the peace of God that transcends all understanding will guard your hearts and your minds. Whether you're dangling at the top of the ladder because of the praise of people and you're starting to get arrogant, or you're dangling at the top because your life is just it's falling apart. If you'll understand that Jesus loves you and that God gave His Son so that you could have life and have it more abundantly, it doesn't make any difference what goes around. That's why Paul said it transcends all understanding. It's not going to make sense. I don't care if it makes sense. My God is God and He loves me. Job said, I came into the world naked, I'm going to leave naked, but I'm going to tell you what. Blessed be the name of the Lord. My God is God and I can trust Him. You will find that when you really realize that God loves you, you'll fall in love with Him. When I go through a difficult time, I ask Shelley to do this song. Here's what I start singing. My Jesus, I love Thee. I know Thou art mine. For Thee all the follies of sin I resign. My gracious Redeemer, my Savior art Thou. If ever I love Thee, my Jesus,